Welcome everyone. It's wonderful to be here with you this evening. My name is Amy Kemp and I'm the founder of Model Communities Association, a not-for-profit that hopes to utilize blockchain technology in the future. And I am here to moderate the panel. We have three beautiful, talented women with us tonight that each have individual roles in blockchain technology. And we're going to allow them first to introduce themselves, please. Starting with Katelin.
My name is Katelin Kennedy. I am a startup attorney. I work with John Fallone out of HQ Raleigh, and it's just a two-man show right now, and we are having a lot more fun than the big box firms. We do everything from incorporation through acquisition, and a little bit of blockchain in between.
Good morning. I was just checking. My name is Sandra Johnson. I have a PhD in electrical engineering, graduate degree from Stanford University, and I own my own fintech startup company, SKJ Visioneering LLC. I'm developing a mobile app for global remittance that uses blockchain and mobile money. I am excited to be here, and I'm happy to have an engaging discussion with you this morning.
Hi there, my name is Kelly Spaulding. I am actually representing two organizations. I am representing a company called Agraria. They are a blockchain solution provider, and I'm also repping for a company called NC Funder. They are a subsidiary of Agraria. And basically, we're out to revolutionize the world on blockchain.
Thank you. And so our first question this evening is in regard to how you each found yourself in this space. What was it about the blockchain technology that led you down the path of into your current roles? You want to start, Katelin, or?
So I have to blame my partner for this. He's very, very interested, and got me interested starting in cryptocurrency in the beginning of 2017. So I got in just in time on that a little bit, and we have seen a lot of clients come to us who want to do ICOs and blockchain or cryptocurrency funds. So, a lot of what we see is on the cryptocurrency side, and that's how we became interested and realized that this is just going to completely revolutionize so many different industries. IoT, healthcare, logistics, real estate, basically everything under the sun, including lawyers. So, we're just very interested and seeing a lot more clients ask about it, and so, naturally we're going to figure it out before everyone else does, hopefully.
Okay, so I had 26 years with IBM. I started when I was 5. My last role, I was the CTO of IBM Central East and West Africa. I spent 3 years in the Middle East and Africa and traveled around the continent of Africa, visiting 22 countries. Learned that there's a critical need for someone with the deep technology skills that I have. So when I came back to the United States, I left IBM and started my own company. That consulting business in sub-Saharan Africa did not work out as well as I had planned. And while I was doing that, people kept coming to me asking me about blockchain. So I finally stopped what I was doing for a second and took a closer look at it, and I went, aha, I can use this for global remittance. I was using mobile money when I lived in Nairobi, Kenya, And so that's how I got involved in blockchain, just, since June. So I have been knee-deep in it since then, and it's really exciting. It is a game changer, and it is an industry disruptor.
So I got into blockchain through through a person that a lot of you may or may not be familiar with. Her name is Nina Kilbride. She is the head of legal engineering for a company that's called Monex. They were previously known as Iris Industries. I met Nina in 2015. She and I were running around in the same social circles. She and I got connected. She had seen some of the marketing and sales work I had done for some of the local businesses. She, at the time, was a lawyer with a traditional local firm here in the area, and she had let me know that she had rearranged her life so that she could code, and turned me onto blockchain and was telling me about cryptocurrencies. So she and I sat down, and she was at a point where she wanted to put her ideas into the universe about what she thought was going on with the technology and what she thought was relevant. She did not have any sort of social presence. I strongly encouraged her to get on LinkedIn, get on Twitter, get on Facebook. She was very adverse to all these things. However, if you want to get your message out, you got to stand up and raise your hand. So she did that, and within 3 months, Iris Industries contacted her and started discussions with her to bring her on because she was one of those wonderful unicorns, a lawyer that could code. So she was at, I think, Iris for maybe 4 months. She introduced me to the head of Monex, a gentleman by the name of Casey, and Casey brought me in so that I could help the development team in blockchain decide how they kind of wanted to go to market, if you will. And so that's how I got turned on to all things blockchain.
Thank you. So if you would now share with us a little bit about how your organizations utilize blockchain technology specifically. What is it about your offerings that uses a particular element of the technology? If you could, please.
Our clients use blockchain, so we have some clients who are creating funds and trading cryptocurrency, and algorithms that will. A lot of our clients are in more cryptocurrency stuff right now, but like I said, I really think it's going to start to become. All of the startups are going to start moving towards using blockchain because it has so much potential in so many different verticals.
So the mobile app that I am developing, GRemit, it's a global remittance app. So people living in the West who send money home to family members and friends in developing countries, and these family members actually rely on these funds to make ends meet. The traditional way of doing it through Western Union and MoneyGram, etc., the fees are very high. There's some issues with security, and it's also difficult for the recipients to get the money. So it's inaccessible to some degree, and it's also inconvenient. So I looked at a way to lower the cost, and blockchain is essentially the third party, if you will, as opposed to, let's say, a credit card, etc. The blockchain is the intermediary. So blockchain disintermediates the whole transaction, so the fees are significantly reduced. So this is something that would be attractive to a remittance type of market. There's also, the security issues, highly secure, and I am also focusing on mobile money, which is a finance account associated with a telephone, a mobile telephone, because many people in developing countries they are unbanked. There are more folks with mobile phones than bank accounts. So GRemit actually transfers the money directly into a mobile money account. So that addresses the issue of inconvenience and inaccessibility. But for blockchain, it lowers the cost and it's significantly more secure than the traditional mechanisms.
So, Amy, what was the question again?
Well, how does your particular or your organization utilize the technology?
So I'll speak to that from the perspective of Agraria. A lot of businesses see how blockchain can help them from a big picture visionary standpoint, but they have no idea how to utilize it. So basically, when they come to Agraria, we have a group of lawyers, we have coders, we have resources that when they bring the problem to us, if you will, we figure out how to solve that problem using blockchain. And we are currently working with, I think, at least 3, but probably closer to 5 different verticals, including healthcare, agriculture, and digital commerce. So the subsidiary that I work for, NC Funder, we are a platform. And the platform, what we're trying to do right now is actually build out some open source tools that currently wouldn't be available for the community. But at its core, what NC Funder wants to do is use crowdfunding to help marginalized communities like the LGBT community, as well as people of color, to help them get on board and implement blockchain in their training and everyday living.
So we need to talk. I need some funding.
Well, that's why we're here, right? Awareness and funding. Okay, thank you. So I'd like to switch gears a little bit and ask you a little bit about your personal perspective on the technology. How do you feel that, or what was it about blockchain that attracted or inspired you initially and on an ongoing basis?
In knowing that this panel was coming up this week, I decided to look into what women, or who of the women in the field, like what are they doing, who are they, what is their background, and I found a sampling of about 50 women who are the known blockchain women in the industry, and out of that sampling of 50, there were 8 countries represented, and it was a very diverse group. At least half of them went to Ivy League schools. They came from major public companies, Google, IBM, Facebook, LinkedIn, you name it. There were all of the big public company heavy hitters were represented. One of them had started the digital commerce up in DC, and the thing that really motivates me about it is so collaborative. And it hits across so many different backgrounds and so many different industries that I feel like it's going to be hard actually for this to be really slanted. I don't think it's going to follow the way of the tech industry because really diverse backgrounds and really diverse people are getting involved already. And it's so much easier for those people to get involved just because of the nature of the technology. So I think because it is so collaborative, it has a lot of potential in that regard.
So I'm going to be part of those 51 women, right? Yeah. I love anything that's deep and technical, right? So blockchain, at least how it's implemented with cryptography and that type of thing, is just exciting to me. So that was my initial appeal. That was the initial appeal to me of blockchain. And having just come back from living in a developing country and understand what some of the issues are, I was excited about how, the ability to couple this technology with addressing a social issue and having a business that comes out of that, because global remittance is a $466 billion business, right? So needless to say, GG Remit will be a $1 billion company real soon, right? So all of those things, was attractive to me.
So the thing that given you guys an indication of how I got to blockchain, but the thing that excited me about blockchain that keeps me here is I have been lucky enough to be involved with an organization, the LBGG Center of Raleigh, and as part of the work that I do for them, I actually got them onto the Salesforce platform. Some of you may be familiar with Salesforce. It's the biggest CRM, most widely used CRM tool in the world. And as part of my ongoing education, I go to a thing every year called Dreamforce. It is the Salesforce conference for customers, and it is a monstrosity. It is 170,000 people from all over the world. And they were specifically having a talk in 2016 about women in technology and what the face of that looked like. And one of the statistics that they brought to the table that blew me away was that only 3% of STEM, science, technology, education, and math, are women of color. And as I looked around that room, I realized that one of the reasons that was the case is we probably didn't see ourselves. There simply weren't many. I counted a handful of us. And it became incredibly important to me to represent women of color in that space and show them that they had a voice in bleeding edge technology. So I was already dabbling into blockchain, but it became a much more powerful thing for me at that point. And also, just because of the collaborative work that the other panelists have spoke on, I see that it has the ability to equalize a lot of marginalized communities, and that's that I'm very passionate about.
Okay, thank you. So you each have unique backgrounds and specialties. Can you tell us a little bit about how you think this technology is going to influence your background or specialty, area of specialty?
I think my background is in trouble to a certain extent. Smart contracts are basically self-executing contracts. So you set the terms, and when the conditions happen, the next step executes. And you know, there's so many technologies out there that are kind of doing this on a not blockchain scale and making contracts really automated. And so I think John and I might be out of business before too long. Not really, but yeah, I think the smart contract piece is huge, and attorneys will have to figure out how to be experts in that and not just experts in legalese and paper contracts anymore.
So you're not going to go out of business completely. I was so busy listening to her response that I forgot the question. So if you can repeat the question.
So how do you feel technology is going to influence your area of specialty?
Oh,
Electrical engineering.
the electrical engineering with a specialty in computer engineering. I'm actually a supercomputer designer by training. And so I've been influenced by software. Hold the person who does software. Blockchain, I think it's still evolving. So because I am a part of the team of folks that are working on it in the early stages, I think I will have a part in impacting the technology as opposed to the other way around. Because I am working with, I'm part of a blockchain ecosystem for a large global technology company that includes, technology folks, that includes banks, credit card companies, and currency exchange service providers, as well as fintech companies. So as the technology evolved, I think we will influence, in addition to the market, influence that evolution. So I see myself as one who's, and I'm a creative, innovative person. I have like 40 plus pending and issued patents, and even with my company, Met, I have 2 pending patents associated with that. So I view myself as someone who is going to influence the technology as opposed to the other way around.
I think that no matter how I answer this question right now at this present moment, it could change tomorrow. Because the reality is, blockchain is the Wild Wild West. It is busy, it is crazy, and every day there's something new. Now, how that impacts on a bigger level the industries that I hit, I think what it has the amazing capacity to do is absolutely stir up creativity and innovation on a level like we've never seen. The thing I like about the Wild Wild West, as crazy and as unpredictable as it is we are at a time in this ecosystem that it's about failing and failing fast. So there are going to be things that don't work, and even the things that do work, I mean, we can collaborate, write white papers, talk intelligently about them, but it's not going to really mean anything until somebody gets in there, tries the code, puts the code into production, implements it, kicks the tires, see if it actually works, adds feature sets, takes feature sets out. We still aren't going to really know, but the really great thing and how it's going to change the industry and influence technology is once that stuff is in play, the amount of activities and ideas generated to see what it can do is going to be exponential. And so that's how I think it's going to stir things up. I think it's going to absolutely give us a platform and a space to create things we've never seen.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Here's a good question for you. What do you think women's imprint on this technology will look like in the future? Would you like to start, Katelin, or just someone else?
I'll start.
I want to start.
Okay. So, I had a feeling this question was coming. Scientifically, I'm going to caveat it with that. Allegedly, women do a couple things a little differently that I think are really going to have the ability or have the capacity to change, or not change, but definitely influence. One of the things about blockchain is it's nuanced. Women, according to scientists, tend to be better communicators and better emoters, if you will. And so the nuances that we look for, the things that we're able to pick up, how we communicate, I think that is going to be really, really relevant in the work that's done. Because the reality is we do it differently. The other thing that I think is fundamentally important is every woman I know, regardless of country, has so many different roles. Motherhood, social, interactor, entrepreneur, finding ways to address those different intersectionalities of who they are and those different identities without, the fact that if I'm a mother, that should be irrelevant if I'm doing a good job or doing a good job with my job. But I think we all know that we live in a society that when people see too much of you, they make assumptions. And I love the fact that blockchain is going to empower people to get their identities back. And so you get to control what people see. And it's about how you merit as opposed to what people think you merit.
To piggyback off of that, women think differently. Their background and their life experiences are different. And there have been numerous studies that have quantified that when you bring people from different backgrounds and experiences to the table, the resulting solution is a much better solution. So from that perspective, the more women that are at the table that's part of the discussion should not dominate, but dominate in terms of numbers, but part of the discussion will result in a much better solution, whether it's blockchain or any other solution.
I think women will be more involved with this from the early stages and are already getting more involved with this from the early stages because No one wants to see the imbalance that happened in the tech, like the initial tech revolution, if you will. And so, you know, there's already groups of women who are coming together and creating investment funds to fund blockchain companies. And so going back to the collaboration, it might just be Raleigh, but the women in the entrepreneurial community in Raleigh are incredibly collaborative and really supportive of one another. And so if that's across the board, I think it just raises the potential for everyone. Because the technology, like I said, is kind of inherently collaborative. I think that women are just going to get involved earlier this time around and really take their place at the table a little bit sooner. And hopefully, this event is awesome, but hopefully we'll just be talking about success stories and not success stories because they're women. And it's just, stories about the work that is being done rather than the difference in the person who's doing the work.
Thank you. So let's talk about how you see this technology playing itself out in the future. Where do you see it being in 5 to 10, 20 years? Do you think we'll see a big shift from where we are now, or consolidation perhaps across platforms or technologies, or do you think it will continue to see the Wild Wild West for a long period of time?
So the government agencies are all starting to take interest. The SEC and the CFTC released a joint statement today, or this week, maybe not today, on ICOs again. And so I think regulation will impact it over the next 5 to 20 years, but people will figure out how to build upon, the regulation will just become a part of it like it has in all other industries. I think that's a really tough question because it's so new and it has so much far-reaching potential in different industries, but the government getting involved might bring some consolidation for sure.
I think for every technology, there's sort of a killer app that propels the technology from the point of let's say, visionaries playing with it to the masses. So, for example, in the 1980s, with personal computers, you had spreadsheets, for example. And even with smartphones, one can argue that one of the killer apps is maps. How do you get from point A to point B? It's made it very successful smartphones. So we don't yet have this killer app for blockchain. Blockchain as it exists today, I think will be very different once we have the killer app or the set of killer apps. Gartner has what it calls a hype curve, where it's for any industry, not just technology, where initially there's quite a bit of hype and the curve goes way, way up. And then, once people started playing with it, then it goes way down, and then it kind of goes and reaches a steady state. And for blockchain, we are at the point where it's going down, right? I mean, just look at Bitcoin, right? You see it's going down. Eventually, there will be a steady state once we get to the point where it's widely embraced and used, and I think that would be based upon the killer apps. In addition to regulation, as you mentioned, the whole thing with cryptocurrencies and the SEC, there's, regulations across countries, right? So because of that, it takes a while. When you have so many players that are going to participate, it's going to take some time. But blockchain will be very different than where it is today. But I believe it will be embraced. It is a game changer. It will be like the internet in the future in terms of its impact in our everyday lives.
So, taking into account what both the panelists said, I think they're both spot on. I think one of the things that we're going to see over the course in the next, the thing about blockchain is I feel like it's super sped up. I want to say 5 years, but my God, that's 100 years. You know, in the next 6 months, honestly, I think we're going to see more compartmentalization. You know, where do we belong? When I say we, what part of the blockchain do you play on? Are you a network? Are you an entrepreneur? Are you a power user? Are you a coder? You know, is it in academia? So I think we're going to start to see, instead of just the Wild Wild West, but certain camps, certain silos pop up. And then my hope, based on the regulation that Katelin talked about, is that we will see, because the technology is inherent, those different camps start to leverage their strengths and propel the technology forward so that we can get some of those super apps that we're talking about. But my initial gut is there's got to be, you know, instead of everybody just kind of running around willy-nilly like what next, I think we're going to start to see people section off, groups, organizations specifically start to silo, if you will, so that they can start focusing their energy and their knowledge base on certain aspects of the blockchain.
So this is a question I did not write down. I can't help but ask. How do you feel that ICOs play into the technology and your conversation? I haven't heard you talk about those, but I'm sure there are people here that have that type of investment perspective on the technology. So would you like to say anything?
I'll say something, okay, because it's going to be real short.
So it's interesting. One of the things that my company deliberately keeps me is they won't let me get so technical, which is kind of scary and kind of weird, but they're like, no, we need you to be high level. And one of the things that a lot of people use interchangeably are the terms cryptocurrency and blockchain. They are not interchangeable. I mean, I don't consider them interchangeable terms. And as a result, it's funny, I'll start to talk about blockchain and somebody will start to talk about Bitcoin or Ripple or Ethereum. And they're fundamentally different things. And I like to talk about blockchain because it is so much more than a cryptocurrency. And as a result, I almost don't talk about ICOs because I feel like right now that's what's getting the spotlight, and that's where a lot of people see money value. And at the end of the day, this is blockchain is a type of technology that's going to revolutionize the world, and I just assume not limited to ICOs. But that's my take on it.
So I don't know how many of you know what an ICO is, what blockchain is, so I'll start there. Well, blockchain is sort of the foundation. There would be no cryptocurrency without blockchain, right? So you can think of it as every 10 minutes, and I'm quoting because that time frame has changed significantly lately. But for Bitcoin, every 10 minutes, 12.5 Bitcoins are created, right? Using what I call roll of the dice, right? And whoever wins, wins the double six, gets 12.5 Bitcoins. But it's part of a blockchain implementation. So cryptocurrencies are created within a certain time frame using blockchain as the technology, right? You can actually use blockchain without ever using cryptocurrency, right? Now, ICO, initial coin offering. There are many startup companies now that instead of an IPO, initial public offering, where they actually get cash, in US dollars, for equity or stock in their company, instead of using fiat currency or traditional currency like dollars, they use cryptocurrencies. So individuals who invest in these companies, the cryptocurrency for the service or the product that the company is creating or providing. So it's not going to be Bitcoin. Some use Bitcoin, but they essentially create their own cryptocurrency And then those who invest, they buy the cryptocurrency using either Bitcoin or Ether. So they use essentially a different cryptocurrency to buy the company's cryptocurrency, right? And the reason why they do that is because they try to avoid using fiat currencies and therefore avoid the SEC and all of the regulation associated with that. So you can see this is not sustainable, right? ICOs are not. It's a way to make quick money because typically a startup, let's say, who's been in business for 5 years can raise $200 million. But a startup that's been in business for 12 months can raise $100 million using an ICO. So it's easy money for the startup. For the investor, it's high risk. It's extremely high risk. So, you probably do better, rolling the dice with the 666, right? So, and there are many cryptocurrencies that exist. So my view of cryptocurrency, if you're the type of person that you're not really concerned about losing a whole lot of money, have fun. Have at it. That's you. Have at it, right? So it is an investment. I have no doubt the SEC is going to clamp down on it. They already are to some extent. So I don't think ICOs are going to be sustainable in the future, if you think about just what I have just described. So I stay away from ICOs. I focus on myself, the blockchain technology.
I don't have a bunch to add because Sandra just did a pretty good job describing how it works, but basically the company's token is either a utility token, an asset token, or a security. The SEC is leaning towards basically everything is a security at the stage that you are raising money, because at the stage where these companies are raising money, they often don't have a product. They have a white paper, sometimes there's a real team behind it, sometimes there's not. And like the other panelists have mentioned, up until about now, it's starting, there's becoming a decline, but it's a really easy get rich quick, build up all the hype to all of your Twitter followers, and some companies have made millions of dollars and then literally took their website down because it was just a scam. And so that's getting noticed from the regulatory authorities, and ICOs, as far as I can see, are kind of starting to decline. People are thinking twice before just throwing money at them. I don't think they'll go away entirely because it is a very useful way to raise money, and depending on whether the token is going to be used as part of the service that's being created, or if it's going to be used just as a currency, they're classified differently. And without getting into the really boring legal stuff, it's been a unique way for some people to raise money, and I think it's going to decline because the SEC is taking notice.
Okay. So one more question, and then I think we have time for audience questions, do we? I'm not sure what time it is right now.
Great.
3 o'clock. We're on time? Okay. So each of you represent different companies. Can you tell us a little bit how you feel this technology allows your companies to outperform or outcompete traditional companies that are in your field or space, if there are such?
We're not using the technology to outperform companies, so I don't know if this is the best question for me, but we're trying to really become well versed in this, because I know a lot of lawyers and a lot of law firms are kind of nervous until the SEC gives a final say, and we sort of are too, but at the same time, like, we're embracing the fact that this is not going anywhere, and the faster we learn and can provide really well-informed services to people who want to create great companies using blockchain, the better off we'll be.
Yes, for GRemit, which is a global remittance mobile app, it's not just blockchain. It's a combination of things. Blockchain is a component that enables the value proposition that I'm bringing to the table. And the blockchain component, as I mentioned earlier, is the reduced cost and also the security that's associated with it. So it reduces the cost of sending money to family members back home.
Amy, I'm gonna change the question a little bit, because I don't believe that Agraria or NC Funder is out to out-compete or outperform, which I know sounds crazy because we're a business, but what we do, which I think is absolutely contingent and plays in very well with what blockchain does, is we create a collaborative space and we foster and facilitate that collaboration. And how we do that is by having team members from across several different verticals, and our network is vast. And we tap those resources, bring them in, and really leverage one another's skill sets so that we can collaborate and get solutions made. So I don't really see that as competitive. I think that's what we bring to the table, and maybe have a little bit of an edge. But you know, I think anybody that looks to have longevity in the space is doing a variation of that.
I think you also said that's what women bring to the table, right?
We do.
Collaboration.
Like, no.
Would we like to open up for questions? Anyone, questions?
This mic doesn't really-
I have children, so I can speak up. In January, when we had a CIO forum, one of the speakers from the state, Tracy, mentioned blockchain, and I didn't even know we were going to be covering this in March, but it was a foreshadowing. She mentioned that the state was interested in blockchain to help with the opioid epidemic and crisis that's going on. Besides the great topics and areas you talked about, how do you see blockchain, either that as an example, if you know about it, can speak to it, or other areas where you might not see it applied, but could have a great impact on the community? Any thoughts?
If you think about supply chain management, right, one of the things blockchain can do is record for the public to see, all of the steps in the supply chain process, right? So from an opioids perspective, when they're manufactured, when they're distributed, all of the checkpoints can be recorded so that you can track, where they go. And one of the issues with the opioid crisis is, you have individuals who are, they are playing with doctors, and they're going from doctor to doctor and playing with the pharmacist. So it becomes very difficult to do that when there's a record of every type of there can be a record of every type of opioid-related transaction, right? Then it becomes very difficult to milk the system. So from that perspective, that's one of the ways in which it can be addressed.
I think the real estate play could be really, really interesting. If you can imagine a home purchase, so to get to where that blockchain can be used to do residential home buying, you have to get title and all of the property records on a blockchain first. So there's a starting point, but if you can imagine someone wants to sell their house and they list this offer, or there's the house that they're selling on the blockchain, someone, it's a distributed ledger, so the offers are verifiable essentially, and then the whole the process before closing is executed by smart contracts. So if an offer is accepted, it triggers the inspector to come out, or even if it's like a smart home by that point with IoT, the home inspects itself. And I know it's weird, right? A drone comes out to do the assessment of the property. You know, you take out the titles, the attorneys who have to do the title search, because the verifiable records basically do the title search for you. And so there's a lot of potential there. And even in leasing property, imagine if your Airbnb was on a smart contract where if someone paid, it triggered the door to open. So even like small transactions, you can take out some of the steps by verifying the conditions that have to happen.
And automating them, right? Next.
In starting your own blockchain company or advising blockchain companies, what would be some of your advice of things to avoid or some mistakes that they could avoid in order to be successful as a startup?
I see it.
What advice would you give?
So, investor startup advice for
Yeah.
a blockchain
Right.
company? Okay.
Just understand that this is an emerging technology. It has not arrived yet. So to have the mentality that I am going to make this and I'm going to milk this for the next 20 years is not the right mentality to have. You have to be flexible, understand, and as part of the implementation or whatever it is that you offer, for sale, understand that it has to be flexible and it has to evolve over time.
I would also say, because the technology is, not cutting edge, it's bleeding edge. To surround yourself with people that are immersed in the technology, very passionate about it, because they stay on top of what's changing. And if you are the owner and the person that's looking to execute, keep your vision, but to the panel's point, stay flexible, because the reality is how you execute that vision could change on a dime. And so don't get real attached to the how. Just be clear as to what you're trying to do and understand that the work underneath the hood may change at any point, and that's okay.
Question on standardization for basically some kind of standards. Are there companies that seem to be leading the standard for blockchain right now that are being more or less accepted? Seems to me.
What are some of the basic standards that are out there?
Because it seems to me when new technology comes out, there's a number of companies that all decide they have the standard. Later on, after a while, it falls out as to just a few. Do you have an answer to that?
I might be able to speak to that.
I can say that there were groups of entities, businesses, etc., and individuals who are working collectively on, I don't want to say standards, but on their common interests.
Right.
And that may evolve into a standard. So Ethereum is open source, Hyperledger is open source, and they both, multiple entities and individuals working on this. In the financial sector, there's R3, right? Which is a group of financial institutions worldwide that are working on, they say it's really not blockchain, but it really is. But there are groups around the world that are working on offerings that are mutually beneficial to them that could evolve into standards. So we're really at, when she says bleeding edge, it really is bleeding edge. So that's another reason why the blockchain as it exists today will be very different, because standards will emerge, and they're in the process of emerging now.
I think what we're seeing is a lot of think tanks, and so the real game changer, I think, at least in the last 3 or 4 months, has been interoperability. So we see all these little offshoots, right? But the reality is, because they're not formal standards in place, then how are these emerging technologies going to play together? And so what we have seen recently are collaborative think tanks or groups or consortiums of businesses and organizations where it behooves them to play well together. And we're seeing conversations and things start to evolve that look and smell like standards but haven't been named as such, but what those are doing, those are rules and ideas to promote interoperabilities among these technologies.
Okay.
There's not a lot of lobbying though, and so if they wanted to get ahead of the regulation a little bit, they might want to come together and think about lobbying Congress, because who besides the people who are involved in blockchain are better informed about the ramifications and the ways that it might be responsibly used and built.
And I've seen a lot from the World Economic Forum as well. A lot of papers. I know Kelly has one over here that you're welcome to look at if you want. Someone else?
I have two questions, actually. Question number one, blockchain is actually a technology that's been around for quite some time. We know that. And I've heard a lot of bleeding edge part of that. So I just want to know, for a technology that has been around for almost 10 years, which part now is the bleeding edge? What people are actually working on that was different from 10 years ago? So that's my first question.
That sounds like a statement.
Yeah, because I couldn't tell. Maybe I just don't know enough.
So in 2007, I'm sorry, 2008,
Yes.
the paper by the guy with the Japanese name, but we don't know who he is. Right, Satoshi Nakamoto, I think it is?
Yes.
Nakamoto wrote this paper that essentially described a blockchain.
Sure.
And the first blockchain was implemented in 2009, right, which is the Bitcoin blockchain. So the Bitcoin blockchain has been around since 2009. From 2009 to 2014 was what I call blockchain 1.0, where it was primarily just transactions back and forth, right? And since 2014, it's been the smart contracts, which in my opinion has opened it up and has broadened the impact, if you will, of the blockchain technology. So it is still emerging as a result, because initially from 2009 to 14, you had a few players. Over time, more and more people became involved. And I think smart contracts is just the tip of the iceberg, right? So from that perspective, even though it's been around since the paper in 2008, the implementation since 2009, there's still quite a bit of innovation and creativity to be integrated into the blockchain technology, in addition to whatever changes that are going to happen as a result of regulation.
I think the other thing is what we're starting to see now that we didn't see in 2009, in 2014, is security being an issue. So now people are getting hit with ransomware and cyber attacks. And now all of a sudden, although blockchain was this, this transactional thing that we were, exchanging data, now we can see the value, and that if we build it and set it up correctly, it could really, really help, thwart some of these cyber attacks and some of the fact that, people are losing billions of dollars based on these hostile attacks. So those things weren't even thought about. So not only is it, what's bleeding is the fact that we are seeing now ways to answer questions we didn't even know we had in 2009.
The second question?
Oh yeah, the second question is, other than the security aspect, also the cryptocurrency aspect and smart contract, are there any other successful application of this technology that you know of? Any sectors?
We've only mentioned a few there. It's covered a lot. I saw a company this week called, I think it's Follow My Vote, and they have a vision to get voting all online on the blockchain. It's really interesting because it takes out the need for polling places. It's completely verifiable, and like they've mentioned, it's a lot more secure. And so if there's a distributed ledger, it's much more difficult to commit fraud. And I'm not the technical person, so I don't know like how that's going to work under the hood. But that's a really interesting use case that could change a lot. I mean, voting turnout is not as high as it should be. Could be a real big game changer in this country and others as well.
So if you think of what industries leverage transactions as part of doing business, that's every industry. So blockchain is therefore a candidate to be considered in just about every industry. And it can revolutionize the industry because transactions as we know it today is antiquated, right? Even the digital transactions, the underlying infrastructure is the same. Blockchain enables an industry to change the infrastructure and therefore leverage and utilize transactions in innovative and creative ways. And that is the case for every industry, and that's why it's an industry disruptor.
I can tell you where to find the story, and I can tell you what it does. I can't tell you the how, but it's pretty damn fascinating. So if you go to the Consensus website, they, and a lot of you are familiar with Consensus, but one of the companies that they have has recently, within the last 6 months, put a blockchain application in one of the cities in Sweden. And basically, if you're a member, or if you live in the city, I don't know if the citizens have a token or what they have, but you don't need anything to walk around the city and get what you need to get done. You go into the post office and you get what you need. You go to get your driver's license, you don't have to show up with anything. Everything is built on the blockchain, everything regarding your identity, so that if you were in the city, a resident of the city, where you live, your email, your address, how much, I don't know, but it's absolutely fascinating. They've taken the city as a case study and built individuals' identities on it, and you literally don't have to have anything. And the real beauty of it is, as a member of the city, the post office only gets the exact information that they need to do business with you. Your utility company only gets the exact, so they don't, they're not privy to your email or, the fact that you got 4 dogs or whatever. But by building an identity tied to the city, it's absolutely revolutionized the function. And like I said, I can't give you the how or why, but if you're looking for an absolutely out-of-the-box, fantastic way that this is happening, it's on the Consensus website.
There's also an NPR case that's from the mayor of the city in Sweden. And he explains why this should just be normal business. It's an interesting and fascinating and very practical kind of an application.
Exactly.
And by the way, Dubai is doing a similar type of thing. So it's not, yes, it's more than one city. Like,
The whole country of Dubai.
yeah, the whole United Arab Emirates. Dubai is one. I lived in Dubai for a couple of years. They have the money to do it, and I have no doubt they'll do it in grand style.
I'll offer to the people here that the spring of this year, I went full-time on a deep dive into blockchain. And what I created was a 500-page document, which I called the Blockchain with Webography Index. The first 10 pages is an outline of all the information I found about blockchain, organized the way my mind organizes things. And some of the questions that I've heard about, what about this, what about that, can be found in this webography index. It's online, it's on Scribd. I have it on my smartphone, you can find it. The one limitation is when I uploaded it, the web links were not active. But if you connect with me, I can send you the PDF file or otherwise share the information. I did not continue with it beyond the summer. I got engaged in other activities, so it's more of a time capsule of what I was able to discover and what I was able to discern about the whole blockchain, cryptography, echoverse.
So you should be up here.
What's that? You're doing great. You're doing wonderful.
He's not paid out.
I mean, a lot to learn before them, but and these are 500 pages just of web links. And so when you go to the actual web page, if something can interest you, you'll be exposed to all different levels of information. So I offer that to the group.
In a follow-up to the previous discussion about Dubai and the city in Sweden, last September, the country of Estonia announced that they're implementing exactly the same type of thing that city in Sweden is implementing with regard to building all of their infrastructure on blockchain. My question is, do you see any initiatives like that to implement governmental services in the United States?
Yes. And the government is we won't talk about the craziness Washington D.C. these days, but what I have seen in the reading that I've done is that people that work in technology at governmental levels absolutely see the potential and the possibility of some of these other things. And so what they are doing is, in some cases, partnering with local technology companies, but they are also putting together, plans, if you will, and looking at how they can execute those. As you know, because there's not regulation, and we don't have standards set, there's not but so much they can do, but government is absolutely looking at the possibility. And when I say government, I'm speaking specifically of U.S. government. Obviously, the other parts of the world are head and shoulders above us on this, but the U.S. government is not sitting on their hands. They are aware.
Good to know.
And some state governments as well.
I have an observation. I'm sitting here and thinking about, is it really something new technique? It's here forever, not 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It's according to IBM, who's the kind of promoter of blockchain, they're talking about it's nothing but laser. You keep track of what you are doing. We always did that in past. What's new today that we are all trying to say, let's do it, and is it a old wine in a new bottle? What are we trying to do here? It's a blockchain is nothing but laser, arbitral, to keep track of what you are doing, make sure you can track back and forth. We are doing forever. Specifically, I come from telecommunication background. When we used to write the program, making a call, we used to keep track, what the cell call is going, what is the cell site, what the latitude, longitude, neighboring cell. All these records are there. We used to keep that. Are we sitting, what, we just missed something? Or we are sitting on the wheel, sleeping on the wheel? Are we coming back to relearn this? I'm just trying to clarify for myself and trying to figure out what's new.
I think the big difference is this is a distributed ledger, so it is, there's not one person controlling the ledger of transactions. Let's say you have a store, the store owner is not just keeping one ledger of transactions.
No. That ledger is a wide variety of ledger. And when you are sending calls, you are not in one store. You are sending calls, it's a roaming, it's going from one cell site to another cell site. You have to make sure handoff happened properly or not. You are keeping track of all the information.
It's also secured by asymmetric cryptography.
Cryptography.
So all those three things together is the first application.
Yeah, it's just the technique, how you keep track of those information. Is there something new?
There's this thing called consensus, that is, all of the participants all over the world, when it's updated, they have to agree. And the methodology that's used to reach that consensus is cryptography, right? In the case of Bitcoin, it's 256-bit shared hashing algorithm. So you have all of this input, you have folks crunching the numbers all over the world, and they all have to agree. They're all looking for that 66, and it's cryptography. So that is what's new and different. The fact that the consensus is achieved using cryptography, right? And that's what makes it unique and different. That is what opens the door to a variety of new and different types of innovation.
Yeah, just to add to your application that you were talking about, M-Pesa or the money over mobile phone is there for a long time. Only thing, the consensus between your sender, receiver, and the bank.
Yes. William uses a different type of consensus. You know, I think that's where the whole standard comes in, the interoperability. But at a high level is using cryptography to reach a consensus among multiple non-trusted entities is essentially the core of blockchain technology.
And if I could just add one thing to that, the technology it's a combination of technologies that work together to create a blockchain and multiple locations across the network. So you have to have those different elements that are not new. They're just brought together in a new way, I would say. And that's what is new about the technology, is a new way of bringing together the older technologies and capabilities that have been around for a while. Okay.
So I want to talk about women in blockchain. So as a female software developer for almost 20 years and a female in blockchain for 6 years, LinkedIn recently told me that I should be paying attention to the fact that there are fewer than 5%, women are fewer than 5% of the blockchain community, and that I should be looking at blockchain bros, which is a fun term that means whatever, right? But should I be? Is this something I need to be worried about? Like, we've talked in tech about how to get women involved and taking it all the way down to elementary school, and we got to teach STEM to girls, and we got to get in girls who code and girl develop it and women in tech, and fine, but do we need to be doing those things?
I think so.
Is blockchain a bigger barrier of entry for women than software in general?
Where are they getting their
A lot
statistics
of what
from?
you've
It's
had
all
so far has
database?
been investment related, so I think that's also skewing some of the numbers that are out there.
Well, and my take on it is this. I don't know if it's blockchain per se. I think, and you just said it, I mean, technology as a whole, I think women are generally underrepresented. And the reality is, blockchain is a subset of STEM. And it's even less less representation. So how to get that out? The reality is, right now at this stage of the game, my thinking is we just need more women in technology. Period. And if we can turn them on to blockchain and tell them about the importance, and a lot of it is just about having certain conversations. I ran into somebody in the industry, she didn't know what a blockchain was, had no idea about cryptocurrencies, and I said to her, if you're looking at a career change and looking at doing something different, these are some things to look at. So a lot of it is, and you probably had this experience,
you know, when you've got folks that don't talk your language, it can be incredibly intimidating. And I think women have, you know, they're not a lot of us. And so we need to see more of ourselves, but we also need to be willing to step up and have those conversations with people that and create a sisterhood, if you will, and bring them in.
I think a lot of it has to do with talking to our children, girls, about it's okay to take risks.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of, as we grow up and I have a boy and I have a girl, and a lot of it is as we're raising our boys and girls, boys go climb on the mud, you know, on the mulch pile, the girl's in the room making sure she's pretty and perfect. And so talking to our girls, our children, boys and girls, that it's okay to take risks is the way we need to raise our children.
And I would step that up a level further. I mean, the reality is, especially in the school system, is systemic. It's systemic in the fact that men are encouraged to do stuff around logic and stuff around math and around engineering. Girls tend to go in other directions. And the reality is, instead of doing a hard pivot and stop going, hey, I know that's uncomfortable, but get in there too. We don't have those conversations. We tend to just let things happen. That's not good, that's not bad, that is the way it is. But when awareness grows around it, I think we should encourage young girls to do hard stuff. Hard not for them, but the reality is it's not hard. They're led to believe that it's hard and that they don't have an inclination to it. I mean, the reality is I was a literature major, but if I had to do it over again, I would double major in literature and mathematics because I'm capable. But I didn't know that, you know, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So those are the conversations I think that we should empower girls with. That you're perfectly capable of doing both, and you should.
So I've been in STEM for, well, almost 40 years. Remember, I started when I was a little girl. Yeah. Well, that just includes undergraduate school, but nearly 40 years. And I know this is what I was born to do, and I didn't let anyone tell me otherwise, right? Now, I realize that not every female will have that mindset, but maybe we should encourage them to do what they were put on this in this world to do, right? And so for me, you know, imagine 40 years ago, you know, one too many people who look like me doing this. So I think this is wonderful. It's how to more women. It's just like, yes. But blockchain is technology, right? It's part of STEM. So all of the issues associated with women in STEM, you know, a blockchain, as you said, is a subset of that. I don't think there's anything unique and different about blockchain that would make it more difficult. It's just part of the same issue.
So with that, I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt. This is a great conversation. We're right at the end of the time. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. We're right at 8:30. So a couple things I want to say. First, thank you very much to the panel. Please, everybody give me a hand.